Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Energy Unleashed. My name is Suzanne Worthley with my partner, Kim Hess. Hello,
Oh,
lady.
hello, Suzanne.
How are
Hello,
you?
everyone.
Yeah, okay. We're going to go into something today because I've had a consistency lately in some client work that is kind of interesting. And this seems to be a concern for many people. I have had pretty often lately people saying, I don't feel like I'm connecting with my guides, or I don't
Mm.
know how to connect with my guides, or I used to be able to connect with guidance and I'm not getting it the same anymore. And it's all over the board, different kinds of versions of this same thing. And it's kind of funny because I don't even connect the same with my guides anymore. So I wonder if this is part of the bigger picture and ascension, or if this is just personal stuff. I don't know what, I mean, how about you? What's happening on that end for you?
Yeah, this is so interesting that you brought it up because I feel the support or energy of the angels,
Okay.
which could be my guides, I guess, but I've never had a strong connection with, I say guides and I call them in, but I've never, like, some people are like, oh my gosh, I've got the greatest guide. I think it's an ancient Chinese man. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Like,
I
I've
know
never
I always
felt
felt
like,
left out.
I know. I don't feel like I'm like, what? What's mine? I don't know what
Yeah.
mine is.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting that you bring that up, but I know that they're there and I felt them before, but lately I haven't felt that as much. Um,
Okay.
so yeah.
Well, I want to start with let's talk about what that even means in terms of my guides, because people use that kind of flippantly.
Mhm.
And I remember when I was starting all this stuff, that was when Montel Williams was a big deal on TV, and he used
Mhm.
to have Sylvia Brown on all the time. And she would always like nauseatingly talk about Francine, who was her guide. And I thought, first of all, that was an interesting choice of a name, but and she was always talking about Francine this, Francine that. And I thought, as I got into this more and more, I thought maybe I was supposed to go find my Francine. And I thought if I didn't have a Francine, maybe I was not good at this. And I got really kind of triggered and tripped up with that at the beginning of this journey of my own, in terms of thinking, wow, woof, I guess I'm supposed to have a guide. And it took me a really actually long time to figure out what is even a guide. So when we're talking, and again, take what resonates, everybody, but in my opinion, when we're talking about guidance, basically, guidance comes in different containers for source energy. We are a container that is the human meat and bone container for source energy. We are an embodiment of source energy. Okay. Well,
Mhm.
so is, you said angels. So is angels. Angels is a
Mhm.
choice of a different embodiment for source energy. So when we look at guides, we can demystify it a little bit in terms of they really correlate with, in my opinion, the dimensional frequencies. And why that's easy is because the different dimensions vibrate at a different frequency of light. Hence, they offer a foundational kind of like a place, even though it's not a place, for the guide to slip in. So, like, for example, the first dimension of our existence is earth, wind, water, fire. So we have our planet, right? And so if I'm going to the planet for guidance, I'm going to work with those keepers of that dimension. So that dimension, earth, wind, water, fire, ether, that's when I go, oh, I really pull great from, the stars because I'm fire, or the fire itself, or I pull you, for example, from the water, or
Mhm.
me, I pull from the air. And so these are the so-called embodiments. Do we call those guides? Well, we can, but it's not as easy when it's the elements. But when we
Mhm.
jump up to the next dimension, now it gets a little easier to call them guides because we're moving into the plant and animal kingdom. So now we're having totems. So I can say my guide for me, for example, is a bald eagle. Many people have that. Do I
Mhm.
call that a guide? I can. Do I call it an animal totem or a spirit animal? I can.
Mhm.
Basically, it is another embodiment of God's source in a different container. So many people have animal totems that they use for guidance. I oftentimes will go into the actual eagle energy. And if I'm overwhelmed, I'm like, with a kid thing, you go, eagle, go take care of such and such because I just don't have the energy to deal with that today, kind of a thing. So is that a guide? Sure. Is it a guide? Well, it's also an eagle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
right? So, and we can do this with actually in that elemental kingdom. Now we're talking about the elementals of the gnome for the earth, the undines for the water, the sylphs for the air, and the fire is the salamander. So these are the energy entities that morph into those little bitty cool things, like we can see the wisps or the whatever, right?
Mhm,
Another level of that same dimensional frequency, but another embodiment of that guide source. So
mhm.
we take what's in number one and we morph it into almost a new embodiment in number two dimension. Are you following?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm,
So we can call those guides. Yeah, I'm guided by my fairies, right? So if I
mhm.
really work that element of number two, I am indeed guided by my fairies. So are fairies guides? Yes, but are they? I don't know. I mean, you see how this can play out all the way up?
Right. So I understand that it can be a different type of container, and it's when you talk about dimensions, starting with
Mhm.
the first, second, but what does a guide do? Like,
Well, a guide does anything that you are actually the intent, you're the intentor. You're the one that's
okay,
putting intention into guidance, right?
right.
So if I want fairy guidance, if I want fairies to, help me be joyful, I'm going to work in the gardens and all of a sudden see those little cute little fairy lights and I'm going to get excited. And so you use them for all kinds of things. We can use them for fuel. We can use them for, let's do you, the angels. Can you help me protect? Or so and so sick. Can you hold some space for them? Or can you give me an indicator if this is the right job for me? We are using them for guidance.
Mhm.
So, in essence, though, so I'm going to keep going up for a second if we can.
Okay.
So, then we jump up into that third dimensional realm. Well, now in this realm, this actually humans is the 3D. We're supposed to be the guides of our planetary system. We're supposed to hold the space for the planetary system and humanity itself. We kind of suck at our job. So now we can get caught into a lot of things here. I can be guided in a really 3D way by somebody like my grandmother or my mother. Okay. But when we start to get into that 4 and 5, now we're getting into the higher version of the angel energies. Now we're starting to move into angels, archangels, higher cherubim and seraphim. So every time we're going up, they're getting higher frequencies, and there's no value to up versus down. Okay, because they're
Mhm.
still all embodiments of source. It's just that they're different frequencies and different embodiments. So now we're in that angelic realm. So yeah, I call on Archangel Michael for protection, or I would really like some healing. So I'm going to call on Gabriel and on and on. So the angelic realm is a little ahead of the game because it's been pretty more popular in the metaphysics world for a long
Mhm.
time, thanks to actually Doreen Virtue before, and so, so it has a lot more books out. That realm has a lot more books out, a lot more. This is who does what for what angel.
Mhm.
Me, I don't really. I think that's made up for us. To truly be honest, if I used Michael for healing instead of Gabriel, it doesn't matter. It's just
Oh,
energy. We're the ones that put all that stuff together. And again, Francine is a name because she chose that name. I might have heard it in my head, but that essence and that element and that God source, as we continue to go up, then we get into ascended masters. Now,
mhm.
ascended masters were actually human incarnations on the planet at one time in a time period. And they can maybe be a little bit more direct because they hold that humanity frequency and they may be more, I don't know, specific in their guidance or not, right? And
Right.
then we get into the galactic realm, and then you're starting to see, oh, my guides come from the Pleiadians and all that. So basically speaking, Kim, it's so silly to me that people get triggered and tripped up on this stuff because really pretty much it's coming from your higher self. It's coming from your God self. It's coming from the essence of source itself. So when we're really wigging out about, I don't know my guides' names, I don't know who's guiding me, it's because we're not deciding to go through that process. Sylvia Brown
Mhm.
decided to milk that relationship with a Francine essence of frequency to the extent of she really depended on that. And in
Mhm.
my opinion, sometimes depends too much on that. I can go find a job and feel good connecting to my higher self. I don't have to have Francine tell me that's the job, right?
Mhm.
Because we hold that frequency within us anyway. We
Wow.
hold the knowing,
It's so
right?
interesting because I think I'm guessing a lot of people have a different perception of what a guide is. Like when I first started doing this, I'm like, is it like a a relative that died? Is it like I kept thinking of it more as a person,
And it
you
can
know,
be. It
right?
can
It
totally
can
be
be.
because that's that third dimension.
Yeah.
Grandma died. She had the meatloaf recipe that everybody loved. And all of a sudden she came to me and she helped me in my cooking. And I
Yeah.
became, oh, so dependent on grandma now. And I call upon her all the time when I want to have a great meal. Is that a guide? Sure.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we can, and I don't want to downplay this because guides are really important.
Yeah.
Guidance is really important. But I think people get tripped up on the container more so and feel like they want to own the container of where that guidance is coming through when actually that essence is just essence. And it's using that container. Like you and I are sitting here looking at each other's containers, but is
Mhm.
this who we are? No, it's a personality fractal of our essence,
Mhm.
right? So it gets a little confusing when people compete or worry about guidance.
So when you're like, okay, so for me, if I am, because I'm really, I use the angels as my
Yeah.
container a lot because it just feels good for me. Whatever that vibration is, it feels good
Yep.
for what I'm usually doing or what I'm like when I'm writing prayer or that kind of thing. But like I guess it depends on what you're intending and what dimension you're working with that you need to
Yes.
figure out. So talk about that a little more. Like,
Well, okay, let's use you. The
okay.
reason why you connect with the angels when you write is because your intention in writing prayer is to open up your heart space.
Hmm. So which
Those
is
those angels are in that realm of 4 and 5.
four and
So
five.
your heart and your chakras and your frequency are opening. So like finds like.
Mhm.
It's like here's all the different this is just sitting on my desk,
What
ironically.
is that?
These are my hematite actual
Oh,
magnets.
magnets.
Yeah. So here's a bunch of dimensions, right? Here's a bunch of dimensions, and here's Kim's frequency. And when I open, it's just going to go whoop and it's going to connect, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe it's this connection because I'm using this frequency. Ooh, sorry, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So we're finding all the layers and the levels, right, of the different guidance. And then my little body just is going to choose whatever level I'm connecting to,
Okay.
right? It's a magnetic like finds like. That's so funny that these are sitting here.
That's so
I,
funny.
they never sit on my desk. I was
Yeah.
using them a couple days ago. But that kind of is a really good visual that, here's my little container, and I'm
Mhm.
going through all these layers and layers and layers, which, by the way, are all stuck together and embedded upon each other, right?
Yeah.
Because even dimensions aren't really
Or
separate,
layers. Yeah.
right? They're layers,
Right.
but are they? So that's where all this gets a little confusing.
Mhm.
So I actually hone in on that frequency and I come upon that frequency and I'm going to work right there, right? So,
Okay.
so it doesn't mean that I can't flip up. Look at that. It doesn't mean that I can't flip up here and work in two and then raise it. I mean, it's doing it all by itself. That's cute. So it's showing what I'm saying. I can start here and be really comfortable in this realm, but eventually, boom, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, earth, wind, water, fire works too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, now I want to work with the galactics. So we're all of them. We're just changing our channel on the dial of the radio to find jazz versus hip hop versus country, right? But it's all
Yeah.
on the radio. It's all
Plus
in
you
the
can do multiple at one time out because if you're
totally.
sitting at the fire, and you're intenting manifesting, praying, whatever you're doing,
Yep.
and you're calling in, angels, water, like,
Yep.
so you can do multiple dimensions of
And
this.
that's when it gets powerful. That's why rituals are powerful and prayer
Yeah.
circles are powerful and despacho ceremonies are powerful because you're putting in all the elements of earth, wind, water, fire. You're sticking in the plant kingdom into the fire. You're calling out to your relatives and your lineage line. I mean, it gets seriously powerful when you do that group work because you're using all of them, right? You're just woo everywhere. So it's really about focus and intention coming from you.
Okay.
Okay.
I never thought of it. Well, I do for parts of it because of my focus of the container that I
Yep.
go to. Um,
And look, you do prayer
yeah,
because angels make sense
yeah,
because I learned in religion that angels do prayer.
yeah,
It doesn't mean that you can't pull a prayer from a fairy or a tree.
right. And like But
That
then
got to be fun.
there's certain
That's right.
things that I work with the whales, which
Yes.
is in the whole, animal kingdom,
Yep.
but also the water. Because
Yes.
there's parts of water vibration and different things that go along with that, working with whales or working with, within the water.
So if I can't connect to my angels, which is the frustration of some people, I used to connect to the angels and now I can't. Oftentimes to me, that means that your own journey is calling you to expand
Hmm.
into other areas and understand this is all one.
Hmm.
So if I can't connect to my angels for the prayer, maybe it is about going, holy crap, well, the whale is just as strong. This is cool today,
Hmm.
right? Or if the whale isn't coming through and I'm actually sitting, up at the cabin, you're working with the water instead, or whatever. So it is a buffet of choices in containers, but it's still all higher source energy and God source energy that has chosen to come through in the container. Now,
Got it.
this
Wow.
is why we see things the way that we see them, also because it's coming through our choice and our perspective to make us comfortable. For example, grandma's dead. Grandma comes to me. Well, grandma's going to come to me with her apron on because that's how I knew her, right? She's not necessarily going to come to me and just a plasma light frequency because I'm not going to be comfortable going, oh my God, that's grandma.
Hmm.
Right? So
Right.
oftentimes they will have the ability to morph and change into what it is that is comfortable for us.
And that
And
includes like not only like a look, but like a smell or a,
yes,
yeah,
yes. So
there's
those
other
are
things that go with that.
calling cards
Mhm.
that can help us connect the dots. Let's use Ascended Masters, for example. Okay, well, I'm really struggling with my love life. I really don't know how to get love. I can't find something or somebody, blah, blah. Well, Venus all of a sudden shows up. Well, of course, Venus comes to you because you're promoting love, 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 love. And I want help in this, help in this. And that
Mhm.
manifestation of that Ascended Master or that higher light being of Venus comes in, right? And I mean,
Right.
so it makes sense that the ascended master will also come forward because the frequency of requests that you're putting out matches them.
Wow. That is so fascinating.
On the other
Good
hand,
way
a
to
lot
look
of
at it.
people will go, oh, I always work with Saint Germain because I like to have that, purple flame stuff. And I mean, I don't do any of that. I don't do the purple flame. I don't do any of that stuff. But people that are into that will call upon Saint Germain because that's what his MO stands for example. So,
Do you think though that
right,
if you're constantly going to the same thing, like for me and the angels going to the same thing, although I don't always go to the same thing because like I said, I do other
right.
animals, water, whatever, but do you stay stagnant in your journey and your ascension process if you're not expanding that?
I don't think, in my opinion, and who
Yeah.
knows what's what, but in my opinion, you don't have to be stagnant, but you certainly can create that. A lot of the
Think
people that
so.
are saying, I used to have a lot of guidance and I have lost it. Well, during the course of their, a session, I'm
Mhm.
finding out, well, you've lost everything because you haven't been grounding, you haven't been bubbling, you haven't been pulling cards, you haven't been having joy, you haven't,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah,
Right.
right? So it isn't that they've exhausted the realm because that's impossible.
Mhm.
They've exhausted themselves in not doing the work. So it's again comes right back to us.
I would think though, like I said, Saint Germain, if you are using Saint Germain always for the same type of intention or same type of connection,
Mhm.
you're not going to other dimensions to experience other connections.
And I get what you're saying there, and let's talk about that a little and unleash the concept there. So the concept, oftentimes, when I'll find a client, in fact, this is something that I found with two clients right in a row. They had literally a block in their aura and in their own third eye to
Mhm.
not go to higher dimensions. And again, there's not a value system, but they weren't going to higher frequencies of benevolence. They weren't going to the galactic realm or the higher angelic realm. They were only comfortable in the blah, blah, whatever they were in realm. And that will sometimes come from ourself in the incarnation. It can come from before we come in. It can come from programming. It can come from a lot of different things where we actually block our own third eye and this comes as almost a shadow when I work on it, and it comes over the eye itself on the right-hand side because this is our go-go power. I'm taking charge of this. and it blocks a lot of their neck. And on one of the clients, it did the same, but it wrapped all the way around the back and around the shoulder on the left.
Mm.
So it was a real actual manifested block that did not allow them to open their third eye to the extent of higher realms.
Gosh,
But
that's so interesting because I just did that sacral cranial session with our friend, and
yep,
I was totally third eye, like around, it was almost like, she's like, I don't know what this is, but it doesn't want to leave, whatever that
yep,
block is. And I don't know
yep,
if I created it or if it
yeah,
was
it's pretty
something,
common. Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
can
it was hard to
probably
remove
guarantee
though.
you created it
Yeah.
because
That would be
again,
interesting.
you aren't going anywhere out of that realm of the angelic right now for that. You're working from here down. And sometimes when your higher self and or the frequencies that we're existing in shift and change, we are then allowing ourselves the opportunity to let go of those blocks because my container and the container of the earth frequencies are now safe enough for my inner knowing to go higher.
Okay. Okay.
Right? And remember, it's not value higher, but it is more electric. So,
Mhm.
electric for a lot of beings isn't comfortable. A
Right.
lot of people are more comfortable in the magnetic existence. So, those Mother Earth people, those Earth, Wind, Water, Fire people, those plant and animal people don't necessarily want to open up that crown and third eye to the galactics that are multiverse
Mhm.
because that's scary for them simply because of the vibration of the container.
Yeah, that vibration is so interesting
It's
that
different.
it is. And it can be scary, when
Yep.
you don't know what it is. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. Hmm.
Interesting though, huh? So I am finding that. So you've had it, the
Mhm.
male client had it, the female client had it, somebody else even last week had it. I can feel my own eye like that right now. I mean, I can see that a lot of people are holding this right here.
Yeah.
And it's funny again because it'll make our literal faces kind of like this. I mean, we
Great.
do look in terms of our physicality, you can see we're off, right?
Yeah.
And that's that right left balance of male electric cosmic energy on the right hand side of our body, but this is also go, 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 have to do, do, do. And
Mhm.
then female maternal magnetic energy, which is also about flow and self care. So the balance of all of it is super important. And we can see it oftentimes in our face.
Well, and the physical impacts of this are important to
Mhm.
understand because I know my pituitary gland, because my third eye was closed, and the pituitary, is all the hormones, which also, I've said this before, I have thyroid issues.
Yep.
It impacts the thyroid piece of it too, and speaking my truth, all the things. So what was I shutting down,
Yeah.
personally, and all of that?
Right.
But you
And
you actually
again,
have physical reactions to
you
this.
can, you
Yeah.
can. And especially not only the pituitary, but the pineal gland also, because oftentimes our pineal gland may be shut down, even possibly from a past life,
Oh yeah.
because I maybe, was sacrificed or killed or hurt for being a powerful witch in a past life or a powerful herbologist or whatever
Mhm.
herbalist. I mean, I might have been an herbalist in the time period of when that seemed witch like, right? So if I get killed for my power and my knowing of inner wisdom in another lifetime, I may in my own incarnation in this lifetime choose to block out that pituitary pineal knowing and inner third eye knowing because it's not safe for me until if I choose to go through this life and go through enough clearing and remembering and balancing, and then the energies of this existence are catching up. The ascension can support it. I can support it, and everything comes together. And boom, that's when my body starts to go, God, I've got something right here that's driving me crazy. I go
Mhm.
off to the cranial sacral gallery, comes to my office, and boom, we remove it. So it all works together.
Yeah, because your pineal could be open, but if something is surfacing,
Yep.
we subconsciously can close that again, right? Like,
Yes.
okay,
Or it's open, but it's never really open, open.
okay. So
Meaning,
fully,
meaning in your templates, maybe it's open in your physical template, but it's certainly closed in your emotional template,
which
right?
means it's not fully operating like it should.
Correct.
Okay. Oof. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
guides are, it's like, let's do this. It's like a relationship, If I had my high school friend and I never call her again, then I see her at the 40th reunion, it's kind of like, wow, hey. Oh. And if we have been in connection for those 40 years, it's a completely different relationship.
Mhm.
Guidance is the same thing. If we're working it, if we're asking for it, if we're gratifying it, if we're joyful with it, if we're playing with it, it's just like that friend. Everything is super, super cool. If I have a great thing happen, I want to share it with my guidance, right? If I
Yeah.
really need some assistance and help, I want to share it with my guidance.
I,
So,
I think in the beginning though, I was like, okay, let me know, guides.
right?
Like, what should I focus on? Like, what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do? Like, not
And
instead of like being in charge of my own intentions,
yes.
manifestations, and questions and all the things. Like, I just was like, okay, all right, just let me
And when
know.
you do
They're
this, and
there.
I'm not making fun of you, but when you do this, as many of my clients do,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah, up here.
all that is,
Where are you?
all that is another version of the Savior program.
Hmm.
I want something, even if it's a guide or an
Hmm.
angel, to come in and tell me what to do. And it's not about that. It's about raising your frequency to the level where you're already one with who you are at that level, right?
Right. Right.
So it's super interesting that the way that we do that. And when we chase guidance, it was so cute because this guy that I had in, this is another client. This has been a really common theme, I guess. He was 3 days ago. He was really chasing guidance,
Oh.
meaning I got to go find what my guides are. And I'm like, well, then you already blew it because the guidance is within you. And then he looked at me, he's like, what? It was like, and I said, honey, the guidance is already inside of you. The
Yeah.
wisdom is already inside of you. You don't have to go find your guide to give you that wisdom. It's the alignment to open almost like a portal energy. So it just drops in and ignites in me because it's there, right? I
Mhm.
am it, it is me. So it's a different kind of a relationship.
Totally
Yeah.
different. Yeah, because again, going back to when I first started doing some of this, it seemed like it was always outside of my body.
Yep.
It wasn't me. Like, I'm not in charge of this, whatever that is.
Yep.
And then the whole thing of why don't I have a really cool guide, like an old Chinese wisdom guy? Like,
That's the thing too, Kim, is competition.
yeah,
Oh, so and so has the Chinese guy. They must be way cooler than me. Why can't I figure it out? I'm a failure. And then we loop in that,
right.
right?
Which never gets you to the place that you need to be in your frequency to actually allow and open up
Right.
for that essence to.
And
That's,
allow yourself to change guides because you do. I mean, many of my clients start out very earth oriented.
mhm,
And after working with me for 7, 8 years, they're very galactic oriented. And it's just because they're going through the dimensional frequency changes. It's like going up and down an elevator. So I'm on the ground floor in the lobby, and then let's see what's on floor 7. It'd be kind of cool to get off and work there. That's
mhm,
kind of what it looks like more,
yeah.
right? So mine, I don't see, I mean, I'm an inner sight and outer sight. I can see things out here just not as well, but pretty darn a lot lately. But I never see manifested guides. I see plasma because that's what I work with.
Oh, right.
And so for me, even in inner sight, I don't hardly ever manifest that guidance into a form or a container.
Mhm,
Mine is almost always just plasma light, which oftentimes looks like the heat rising off the pavement in the summer.
mhm.
And oftentimes it will have color. But for example, I was working on someone in a hospital situation the other day, and I was scanning the room remotely, scanning the room, and the amount of guides was just like, and I
Wow.
mean, because the galactic beings were working in the surgery room. And I've seen this with my mom's surgery. I've seen it with my dad's, where the surgeon is standing there and I can see pillars of light behind them and all throughout the room. And it's fascinating. And that's how I see it. I see pillars of light most often because that's just where I work. Um, but yeah, that's super
Yeah.
cool.
Because I'm not a real visual person. Like, in my third eye is not, I'll have faces and animals and things show up once in a while, but for me, it's mostly a feeling of that frequency, I think, is,
Yeah.
and then there's usually color mixed with that
Yep.
that will change or come around.
Yep.
Because we've tried this before, and I don't know, maybe people can, what is that called when you say, okay, in your third eye, picture a red apple, right? I
Oh, what the condition? I can't remember what
yeah,
it's called
it's a
either.
condition, but I cannot see the red apple. I can't,
Yeah.
like when I do that, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's I
Mhm.
don't remember the name of that actual condition, but it is about, and somebody maybe put it in the comments for us.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is an actual condition that your brain doesn't allow you to creatively see the visualization of the apple. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It
Which
doesn't
is
mean you're
weird
broken.
because I visual, it's weird. It's so weird. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we have another,
Doesn't mean you're broken,
we're
but
kind of in the same. Yeah, I know. I'm not broken. I just do things differently.
and then my last suggestion is, practice and play with it and have some fun with it and command guidance. And
Mhm.
people have a really hard time. I can't command the angels. No, you're commanding the energy that's coming through in the container of the angel. If I
Mhm.
want that help, it's up to me to ask. It's up to me to
Mhm.
make that intention, and it's up to me to gratify it. So we're in charge of that. And it isn't like the angels are just coming in and changing your whole life. It's just not even a thing. So
No, and if you are not commanding or asking, you're not going to get it,
connected. Yeah.
basically. So
Yeah.
you that was another thing. It was like, well, why aren't you telling me what to do? It's like, wait, Kim, you're not asking. Come on.
I love that humans just don't ever want to be told what to do. And at the very same time, they totally want to be told what to
Just
do.
make it easy for me. Just guide me through the whole thing, would you?
Yep. No cause and effect there. No consequence. He said it.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, that's kind of gives a lot to think about. And again, if that isn't the way that your guidance works, great. Make it your own. There's no right or wrong to any of this ever, ever. It's just how I see things when I work in and through the containers of the architecture. So take what resonates if you choose, right?
Well,
And
because I
so
think it's continually changing too with
yes,
the
yes.
more light that's coming in, like all the different things that are happening in our ascension process. It just,
And the dimensions are changing because
yeah.
they're getting more clear and more open. And I used to teach it like a layer cake, layer, 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 one, two, three, four, because they really don't have numbers and they really don't work like that. It's just for us to visualize. But I used to teach it that was like a layer cake with sponge cake and then huge frosting. And now we don't even have an egg wash. So they're going like this all the time. So you can just be standing in your day and see something out of the corner of your eye, and it can be anything from an alien to a fairy or, an actual something. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Just make it your own,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Great.
All right. Well, on behalf of us, thanks for listening. Share if you choose to, which we hope you do. Hit subscribe and like, and maybe leave a comment, especially if you remember what the condition is, because we never remember.
I never remember it.
Okay.
Ah.
That's because you can't see it. Okay, that was a joke. All right. On behalf of us, guys, Cosmic Hugs.
Goodbye.